The study we are presenting today on scoping meso-level insurance in agriculture is being funded by CIIE at IIM Ahmedabad and under the Bharat Inclusion Research Fellowship, where I and my colleague Vinit Kurian, who's also the co-PI for the study, are Bharat Inclusion Research Fellows.
Thanks very much for having us. We did visit your campus a few months ago prior to the lockdown. And, I think presented, again, some of the overview of the kinds of things we're doing. And, just in terms of what we are, I mean, we're sort of think of us as a research sort of / learning organization, research center within Kriya University. Um, and it's the way I sort of at least think of it is it's similar to some other universities that I've been part of, like there's something called the Institute for Social Research at the University of Michigan. So it's really a center that I guess is sort of in a way known for fairly high quality data collection and being able to collaborate with researchers across various universities. I mean, I think certainly to date, we've had the privilege of having actually collaborated with again not only academic institutions but also the government and the private sector in trying to actually answer some of these questions that are quite pressing uh, for a developing country like India, where I think we've actually probably had this, I mean, a unique advantage. I can at least speak from sort of the past experience that I've had, where you've sort of, and I'm sure many of you had similar experiences, where you're actually having the luxury of having to work with very high quality data that's already cleaned. Uh, but now but then, and basically the questions then are basically constrained to the data that has been collected, right? I mean, that's how at least I certainly conducted a lot of my research. There's a data set, I know what's available, and then the questions are sort of so posed such that the data can help answer those questions. Now, the luxury we have is the fact that we can actually not only pose a question, but then go ahead and collect data that would help us answer that question. So, I mean, it allows a broader array of questions, I think, certainly some of them very topical, very pressing. But with that comes the sort of added disadvantage is that we're working with some of the governments in programs that are actually unfolding as we begin to collect data. Naturally, when there's sort of delays in implementation of those projects or programs or changes, that really essentially it requires us to again change the way we're collecting data. There would be stoppages and then starts. Uh, and essentially our role here is to actually ensure that the data's integrity is not lost in this process. And I think hopefully over the years we've built some sort of a reputation in being able to sort of you know uh, be able to actually collect a lot of such high quality data sets, as well as then help essentially analyze some of the data to help answer the questions. Obviously, we're funded through various donors. Sometimes the government, many times the private sector, Gates Foundation, for example. Uh, and I think what we've actually consciously steered away from is any influence on the part of the donor in terms of the way the research gets conducted, because that's always an issue. I think when you have a donor funding a particular study, but we've not let that sort of in a way influence the quality of the data that gets collected. We've got broadly 4 different topics that we've focused on. Financial inclusion is sort of the sort of, I guess, how much of the work we did once started over a decade ago. Um, the idea that financial constraints are sort of holding back households and enterprises from essentially unleashing the full potential that they might possess, and how might we actually construct sort of credit instruments to help alleviate some of those constraints. With the micro and small scale enterprises going down now, the bigger question that we're trying to actually answer is, in India, I think there's a sense that there's a lot of small enterprises. They begin, fairly small, but then, a decade on, they continue to remain small. I mean, the growth of enterprises from, sort of, very small to medium to large hasn't possibly occurred in India at the same pace as it has in some other countries, even though there's some debates on that issue. But the question we try and answer is that why is it that despite potentially some sort of impetus provided by the government, uh, what are the constraints again? What's holding them back? Okay, and essentially in that process, one of the I guess uh, strategies that we're trying to adopt now is to sort of see if one can actually build high quality panel data on enterprises that doesn't exist actually, at least at the national level. And so the ability to collect panel data would help us analyze some of the dynamics these enterprises face. So that's sort of, again, I mean, it's a big picture question. There's sort of related questions we try and answer. Health, I'm going to turn to real quick. It sort of was, I think it's sort of clearly gaining momentum all around the world with COVID now. The idea that India as a country has spent enormous sums of money in trying to handle this pandemic, that has left very little to really strengthen the health systems in other ways. I mean, so the focus has been on COVID, but there are other aspects of primary healthcare, which there was a focus prior to COVID. We're not sure essentially how this is going to play out, but what we try and do is try and figure out, with the limited resources, are there sort of micro health systems? So we work with particular NGOs to see, can we construct or sort of think of a micro health system serving the poor that'll could be essentially work efficiently, and then if it does, then can it be scale it up? So again, it's an ambitious project, but I think it's still something that probably is important, from certainly the national perspective. Problem that many very bright minds, Nachiket Moore and others, have actually certainly tried to spend enormous amounts of time trying to solve that question. Finally, with governance, which basically the idea that no matter what uh, sort of policies are instituted, I mean, this is actually institutions really is how we'd want to actually call it, not governance. But the idea is no matter what actually what policies are instituted, finally it comes down to the quality of the institutions that actually dictate the effectiveness of those policies. So the micro level, we try and understand, the structure of institutions and how that might actually be potentially changed I mean, are there ways in which institutions can be changed? Again, huge question, but I think, I mean, part of what I wanted to say is the fact is that I think the ability to actually collect the data that we want is something that actually probably we do perhaps possess. But these are crazy times, strange times. Naturally, the remote way of data collection certainly hampers a lot of that, right? So we're eager to get back into the field, which we're hoping to do over the next month or so. I'm going to stop there. Again, this was just meant to be, sort of setting the stage for the prime time sort of talk here. This is more a sideshow, but I thought I'd like sort of introduce you to some of the work we're doing. I'm going to stop here, but again, at the end of this talk, if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take it forward by introducing our study first. The study is titled Scoping Mesolevel Insurance in Agricultural Sector in India. Well, largely, in India, I think from the time in agricultural insurance was introduced, it has always been at at the micro level. The agricultural sector in India has always been, exposed to a lot of risk, both natural risk arising from natural factors as well as man-made factors. And we are trying to introduce the concept of meso-level insurance. What is that? We'll discuss very in details in the next couple of slides. Well, this study seeks to explore the potential and the feasibility of alternative channels of agricultural insurance, specifically at the meso level, which covers the risk aggregators. So essentially, what is meso-level insurance? Meso-level insurance focuses on ensuring the agricultural intermediaries along the value chain who are exposed to different sorts of risk. And in our study, we specifically focus on intermediaries, which include agricultural input suppliers, financial institutions, producers, organizations, agricultural traders. So unlike the micro level insurance where the farmer is actually the policy holder, here the meso level insurance, in meso level insurance, the aggregator is the policy holder. So a farmer who has a membership to, say, a producer organization would benefit from it if the producer organization is the policy holder. There is an insured party, and in some cases, the policy holder is also the insured party. And there are different models of like implementing the insurance. We will discuss this as we discuss the potential use cases later. So as I already mentioned, the agricultural sector has a lot of associated problems in terms of indebtedness, crop failures, non-remunerative prices, or poor returns, which have led to the agrarian distress in many parts of the country. It has been observed that in terms of facing adverse shocks, the coping strategies in the absence of formal risk mitigation mechanisms, the farmers usually adopt to informal ways of risk mitigation, which have which affect adversely their consumption, and they might also lead to distressed sale and sale of productive capitals like cattle and other assets. So in this background, insurance appears to be particularly effective means to reduce the losses individual and communities suffer due to the natural calamities. Well, yes, it's not that this has never been thought about, because I guess the government of India is playing a major role in providing agricultural insurance and ensuring the farming households. In fact, we have the largest insurance plan in entire South Asia that everybody looks up to. But there can be an entire discussion on this later as to how the schemes have not really able to achieve the desired outcomes. And with the current insurance product, even if you look at from the supply side perspective, the insurance companies still face various structural, logistical, and financial obstacles. During the pandemic, where we expected the demand for insurance to rise high, and so should have been the interest of the private insurers to provide insurance. But it was seen this season during the Kharif specifically, many private insurers were withdrawing from supplying insurance to the agricultural sector. A very interesting phenomenon. So despite all of these measures, around 60% of the target population still remains outside the scheme. So we have 5 objectives in our study. The first one, obviously, to assess the scope and feasibility for the meso-level product in agricultural insurance sector in India. The second one, the analyzing the attitude and scope of government authorities and insurance companies towards supplying meso-level insurance to the crop, to livestock, and any other allied sector. And the third point being analyzing the attitude and demand for aggregators such as financial institution, FPOs, NGOs, cooperatives towards meso policies in agricultural sector. These are also our primary stakeholders. While the second and the third talk specifically from the demand and the attitude and interest from the demand and supply side perspective, we also try to understand the key design components that the meso-level insurance product should incorporate, taking into account the structure and logistical constraints that they might just face on the ground. And obviously, this study would remain incomplete if we do not suggest the appropriate distribution channels and models that could work in providing meso-level insurance. This is basically the methodology adopted is basically it's a qualitative study. We rely heavily on the extensive literature and policy document review to understand what the global experience with meso-level has been for the other countries and institutions that have implemented it. I'll be happy to share some insights from this in the upcoming slides, and also some insights from the key informative interviews. So we conduct the KIIs with all the identified stakeholders using a semi-structured interview questionnaire. The questionnaires are designed actually in 3 parts. The first part, we have some general questions on agricultural insurance and the stakeholders' experience of being associated with providing agricultural insurance or taking up of agricultural insurance. And the second part will discuss specific questions on the existing products or some products that they might have offered or have taken up. And in the third part is where we actually then put down the questions on meso-level insurance to understand its relevance in the agricultural sector. And we try to understand the interests and attitudes of the stakeholders. Well, and obviously post all of these interviews, we quantify their responses. So the study is still in progress, if I may just tell you. So maybe some analysis using what could be the constraints cannot be like shown right now in this presentation, but we are happy to share the report once it's completed. And one primary goal of doing this study is to develop certain use case. So the potential use cases for meso-level insurance. So the use case development, the approach we have taken is to consult, to have in-depth interviews with the stakeholder groups. The groups identified for the use case currently are the farmer producer organization, the agro-food processing industries, the credit institutions, NGOs, agribusiness. We have proceeded with the FPOs and certain NGOs. We are yet to get into the discussions with agro-food processing industries and see the possibility of developing a use case. And how we do this is we get into an in-depth interview with them where we sort of understand their risk profile. So understanding the risk profile of these particular institutions is the first step to even think about what are the gaps which have not been filled yet, you know, like, and what are the existing risk mitigation strategies that they have and the potential areas for introducing the meso-level insurance. So this is some insights from the stakeholder mapping. We have 2 categories of stakeholders: the primary stakeholders, the FPOs, agro-processing firms, NGOs, MFIs, cooperatives, and agribusiness. And then the secondary stakeholders being the government institutions, insurance providers, the reinsurers, insurance modelers. Well, if you can see, the primary stakeholders are the ones who will be actually introducing the meso-level insurance through their institutions, and the secondary stakeholders would be the supporting institution and bodies. And I think there was a speaker previous to this session who rightly said that, you know, that the private sector will bring about financial inclusion and the government sector has to essentially support it. And that is true for our study as well, all the consultations. So this is an interest influence matrix that we mapped from all the in KIIs that we had so far. You can see it's very obvious in this slide that the people in academia might have great interest in meso-level insurance, but in terms of influence, it might be less. Similarly, we have government institutions with high interest and high influence, the private insurers, NGOs also having high interest and influence in implementing the product. I must admit that this is very dynamic at this point of time, because I think with more interactions as we increase our sample size, definitely there'll be these blocks will be like moving up and down a bit, what we expect is the NGOs and private insurers would always, and the FPOs will always have
Uh, Dr. Sabina, I think we've lost your audio a little bit, or is that fine? Or I'm not able to hear it.
No, there is no audio from her in this
Yeah,
last few
yeah,
seconds.
yeah. Last few seconds we lost you, Sabina. The audio part.
Now?
Yeah, can you continue? Can you continue now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, carry on. Yes, now
Uh,
you're audible.
all right. So I was just sharing the global experience in meso-level insurance. I'm not sure how far everybody heard what I said, but I'll repeat. So I said there have been quite few experiences in countries like in countries of Latin America, Africa, and South Asia. So closer home, I think Bangladesh has been very successful in implementing meso-level insurance in two instances. One is their popular meso-level insurance product of Pran Foods, and the other one was Oxfam, who implemented meso-level insurance specifically covering the flood risk. Vietnam has had some good success with meso-level products, and they are still implementing it. So the overall highlights, what did we actually conclude from their experiences is that the meso-level distribution heavily relies on extensive local networks or with pre-existing connections to rural households that the local aggregators have access to. That becomes the strength of implementing the meso-level product. One limitations that we observed through the experience of other countries has been in terms of designing models that will ensure that the risk aggregator can eventually pass on these insurance benefits and payouts to the intended beneficiaries, because the farmers here will get the benefit indirectly. We'll discuss this thoroughly in the use case slide. Some emerging insights from the agri-insurance experts. Well, yes, I think the agri-insurance experts say that there has been a lack of understanding even among the policyholders on how an insurance business model actually works, and that sort of affects the policy design. You know, and having not said this enough, but aggregating risk is conceptually so appealing, but the success of this approach rests on the choice of the aggregators. How they want to choose what are the risks they want to cover and how they want to uh, design the product. So the benefits of meso-level product for an aggregator is identified as being able to create a new product that accounts for locally relevant and specific risks. So many of the insurance products we see in agriculture has supposedly the same size fits all kind of an approach, but I think meso-level has an advantage here of covering and understanding the local risk and covering them. The meso-level insurance can definitely has the potential to reduce the cost of administrating the insurance products. I think this is one thing that even the private insurers agreed upon, because a large part of the cost is borne in sort of administrating the insurance product in loss assessment, claim settlement, and obviously meso-level insurance is or even disseminating the awareness regarding insurance and advertisement. So I guess that is something that meso-level insurance products could potentially overcome. Meso-level innovations, the agri experts definitely said that can be tested through a regulatory sandbox approach. And I think IRDA has taken some step this time by setting up a sandbox where they are going to test some new insurance models. And government can play a significant role in supporting the program, as already mentioned by many people, I guess, today. Some emerging insights from the private insurers. These are very important because if we want to introduce the meso-level insurance, they are one of the key stakeholders. So providing insurance products to the agricultural sector, they agree is a viable business proposition and an opportunity for the insurance companies to support the agricultural sector more. What they say is that to begin with, a model with 5 to 10% profits for insurance companies will be a good starting point and an attractive venture for the stakeholders. But they also highlighted some of the key aspects that have to be taken care of. Basically, the proper pricing of the product. It has to be properly priced so that it's an attractive venture for the supplier, as well as it is equally appealing and affordable for the buyer as well. And of course, improved loss assessment of the insured risk. A loss assessment is something that we always sort of like struggle with coming up with what could be a good way of like, you know, assessing the loss, and streamline claim settlement process. For both of these, I guess like technology has a larger role to play here. And then there are smaller areas and geographies to be covered. They said like the unit of insurance should definitely be reduced. And initially, a government support could actually help in launching meso-level insurance product, like they have done for micro insurance. It's a hugely subsidized program. Some emerging insights from the product design and advisory. Well, meso-level insurance will definitely work well to promote innovative production practices or use of inputs in the agricultural value chain. So say NGO or FPO wants to sort of introduce a new product, or you know, wants the farmers to adopt, say, an improved variety of seed, and then like meso-level production can help that and supplement that. The FPO and SHG federations can be an important distributing channel for meso-level insurance, and so can be the financial institutions. In terms of the design principle, you know, like everybody like agrees that the consultative process with farmers is always crucial in understanding the localized and specific risk that they want the protection against. I thought talking about this would be important since the study is in progress, and I think like many of you who are doing your research right now are facing the same issues. But let me just highlight two important issues that we have come across. The first one is definitely the limited understanding of the term and the concept of meso-level insurance. It takes some time for us to actually explain to the stakeholders what we mean by, or how we are defining meso-level insurance, you know. So we have incorporated multiple lines of inquiry and probing terms to engage stakeholders in the KII process. You know, we slowly talk to them about what do you think about group insurance, mutual insurance, and then take them to meso-level insurance. And this challenge encounter is definitely delays in interviewing the farmers for the demand side FGDs. We had actually scheduled in-person interviews and focus group discussions, which we could not do. An entire study has been shifted to e-interviews, but we are looking forward, hopefully sometime, if we are able to do one or two focus group discussions with the farmers. So I think the next few slides will talk about the potential use cases, who can actually benefit from meso-level insurance. How does this work, right? So say ABC is an institution in agriculture which has the following portfolio. You know, it gives agri services. It also promotes financial inclusion for smallholder farmers, and it deals with implementation and scaling up affordable agricultural products. It also gives them access to credit, access to seed. So these are some of the services that probably ABC as an institution is providing. And we have farming households in that area that avail these services from ABC. ABC can be an FPO too. Okay. So and now let us assume that they're functioning well. But however, there has been flood in that particular area, and which is suppose a recurring problem in that particular region, which affects the farmers tremendously. So not necessarily in some cases it might damage the crops. In other cases, you know, it might not directly damage their crops, because if their crops were damaged, then obviously they can sort of avail the crop insurance scheme, but maybe it is affecting their households and not the crops directly. What could be the implications of that, and how do we go about it? So say if the flood strikes in one of the areas, the households would still be eligible to get some claims and can be paid accordingly. And this is a multi-tiered compensation payment system that institution can adopt. So you can see we plot the payouts and the number of days that the flood might have occurred. So say anybody who has suffered continuously 11 days of flood can get a payout of $35. More than 11 days, up to 21 days, can get a payout of $55. So similarly, we can have a compensation payment system. So now taking the case of ABC and putting it in case of a specific context, that is the farmer producing organization. Does the FPOs have the potential to implement meso-level insurance? Yes, because obviously as of now, we have around over 7,000 FPOs registered into the country, and the GOI has also recently approved so many formation of nearly 10,000 new FPOs. And these FPOs have been in who have been in operation for a long time usually die down. We have seen a lot of the times because like somehow they are not being able, they don't cannot sometimes function properly because indirectly they are affected by the natural calamities. Their operations are being affected, and there's a several risks that remains uncovered. So for successful implementation of FPOs itself, their risks need to be covered, so that they can function smoothly. What can be done? We can have some consultative engagements with FPOs to understand localized and specific risk faced by farmer members. And then we can develop some customized insurance product relevant to the risk faced by the farming members with the FPO, acting as the policy holder on behalf of the interest of the farmers. And obviously this has some benefits, like leveraging the FPO can overcome the issue of low awareness, knowledge, and trust of agriculture. So I mean, like this I think every discussion on agricultural insurance implementation always talks about low awareness of the insurance scheme, and obviously low insurance literacy among the farmers itself. So I guess like when we talk about introducing meso-level insurance, it takes care of this huge issue, and here you don't have to spend. So now I think the insurance companies, you can correct me if I'm wrong, need to spend 0.25% in advertising, promoting, and educating the farmers about what agricultural insurance is. And I think that can be safe because here you just have the board members of the FPOs that you have to educate about the meso-level insurance. And obviously distribution can be easier and more cost effective as awareness of the policy has to reach only the aggregators. FPOs can definitely overcome distribution challenge, especially among the non-loany farmers, So what we did, this are some emerging insights from the discussions we had with FPOs, the interviews we have. We have a risk profiling of this FPOs. As you can see, these are the different risks that have been laid out. Production losses due to adverse weather condition, procuring good price for the output, and problem with storage and transportation are high risk and also have high impact. Just to give you a small understanding, the FPOs that we interviewed were from Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, which has a huge presence of FPOs. And then similarly, production losses due to pest or animal attack could be the chances of occurrence could be moderate, but the impact could be pretty high. So this is a brief risk profiling of the FPOs that we interacted. Here's some potential use case for agro-processing industries, and probably this is the last use case I'm discussing. The potential, the agro-processing industries can definitely use meso-level insurance to protect its farmers in contract farming agreements. So, the farm bills provide a provision for the farmers to enter into contracts with the agro-processing firms. And so in the coming times, we not that like we did not have contract farming in agriculture for the longest time. We did have some like Godrej or PepsiCo has already like indulged into contract farming with the farmers for a long time and have been very successful. So meso-level insurance will work well to promote the innovative production practices or use of newer inputs in agricultural value chain. How that can be done, where, for example, let's have PG in a Okay, a fun part. You can suggest me a good name for this agro-processing firm. It's just that I was listening to BG while I was preparing this presentation. That's how the name came in. Anyways, so BG is an agro-processing firm that leases out land to farmers to grow, say, crop X, which is a major input for their firm. Say, I'll take the example of Prawn Food, the very practical and tested solution that they did. So Prawn Food had, say, cassava as an input to making chips. So now they thought, cassava input to not just chips, but many other products that they were actually producing. So importing cassava became very expensive for them. So they thought, like, why not let us help the farmers grow cassava here, and let's get into a contract farming with these um, farmers spread across the 100 acres of land. They actually started with 100 acres, and then see how this goes. So the farmers were obviously a little not welcoming to the idea, because what if it doesn't work and they are not able to get that assured price? But then Pran came forward and gave them this assurance that they will sort of um, whatever the expected harvest value will be, they are going to get the payout for that. So Pran here itself was the insurance provider as well as the insured. And then once BG purchased the meso-level insurance to cover the expected harvest value, it becomes both the policyholder and insured parties. So the benefits of this, that it can use the payout to cover the liquidity needs in the event of insufficient local supply due to a major weather shock. That's all. So I actually had, I think a slide was missing, but anyways, so this is all. I would love to hear your thoughts and comments. If there are any questions we can take at this point. Thank you.